And ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the Experience Hockey Talk, serious hockey talk for serious hockey fans. I am Mike, and we're already having weird technical things happening to the show this evening. It's very weird. I had it on Facebook Live where I was able to see what I was doing, and then it turned into something where it was, I don't know. And so I'm hoping it saves onto Facebook Live. If not worried about it because it'll be up on YouTube. It's streaming live on Twitch as well, so never fear. But yeah, welcome to the Experience Hockey Talk, serious hockey talk for serious hockey fans. Obviously, our website, txthockey.com. Keep on heading over there. Keep reading the articles, game recaps, all that fun stuff. And of course, a little later on, we're going to have Steve Gardiner, who is our Toronto Maple Leafs writer. We recorded yesterday for today's show, so he is on. So let's get rocking and rolling, shall we? Starting off with the Capitals game on October 17th. See what I mean by weird stuff going on? I had that muted, it turned itself on. I can't make this up. Anyways, October 17th, New York Rangers with the Washington Capitals. The third Wednesday in a row the Washington Capitals played on NBC Sports Network. For New York Rangers, their lineup was Chris Kreider with Mika Zibanejad and Jesper Fast, Philip Scheidel with Kevin Hayes and Matt Zuccarello, Jimmy Vesey with Brett Howden and Vladislav Nemesnikov, Cody McLeod with Ryan Spooner, and Vinny Lettieri. On defense, they had Brady Shea with Neil Pionk, Mark Stahl with Brendan Smith, Frederick Claesson with Kevin Shattenkirk, and Henrik Lundqvist in the net. For the Capitals, they had Alex Ovechkin with Evgeny Kuznetsov and Chandler Stevenson, Jacob Vrana with Nicholas Backstrom and TJ Oshie, Andrei Burakovsky with Lars Eller and Brett Connolly, Nathan Walker with Nick Dowd and Devontae Smith-Pelly, Dmitry Orlov with Matt Niskanen, Michael Kempny with John Carlson, Brooks Orpik with Christian Hughes, and Braden Holtby in the net. And in the first period at 6:09, Mika Zibanejad would get the goal scoring started for this game, where he would score his second of the season, assisted by Chris Kreider and Neil Pionk. Then at 9:35, Nick Dowd would be called for interference. And then at 14:05, John Carlson would get his third of the season from Nicholas Backstrom, his seventh, to tie the game at one apiece for the Capitals. At the end of the first period, it'd be tied 1-1. Shots were 14-9 in favor of the Capitals. Faceoffs were even at 9 apiece. Hits were 8-1 in favor of the Washington Capitals. And on the power play, the Rangers were 0-1, where the Capitals did not have a single power play. This was an okay period for the Caps. The Rangers are playing aggressive, and the Caps will have to take advantage when the Rangers get a little over-aggressive, especially when they double team guys along the boards. The Caps need to do a better job of controlling the tempo of the game. The Caps had spurts where they controlled it, but they let the Rangers back into it too many times. In the second period, for the New York Rangers, Brett Howden would be called for tripping at 2:09, which on that power play at 3:32, Alex Ovechkin would score his fifth of the season from John Carlson and Brett Connolly, their fifth and fourth respectively. Then at 5:39, Jacob Vrana would be called for hooking. Then at 12:37, Dmitry Orlov would be called for holding, which on that power play at 12:42, Jimmy Vesey would score his third of the season from Neil Pionk and Brett Howden. Then at 15:42, Jesper Fast would be called for interference. And then on that power play at 17:01, Alex Ovechkin would strike again for his sixth of the season and second of the game from John Carlson and Nick Backstrom, their sixth and eighth respectively. Then at 19:32, Brendan Smith would be called for interference. At the end of the second period, it'd be Caps 3, Rangers 2. Shots were even at 27 apiece. Faceoffs were 23-22 in favor of the Rangers. Hits were 14-8 in favor of the Caps. And on the power play, the Rangers were 1 for 3, and the Caps were a perfect 2 for 2, with the third in progress going into the third period. This was a good period for the Capitals, but it was a better period for the Rangers, in my opinion. The Rangers outshot the Caps 18-13 and forced the Caps to take some bad penalties. However, the Caps forced some penalties upon the Rangers and got 2 power play goals as a result of that. The Caps need to capitalize on their power play to start the period. The Caps also need to play a full 20 minutes to finish off the Rangers. Going into the third, well, they didn't do much with the power play, and then at 9:20, Nathan Walker would be called for holding, and then at 10:25 on that power play, it would be Chris Kreider getting his fourth of the season, assisted by Neil Pionk and Mika Zibanejad. And then at 14:43, Kevin Hayes would be called for high sticking. Caps would not be able to do anything with that power play, so it would be tied 3-3 going into overtime. Shots were 36-32 in favor of the Capitals. Faceoffs were 33-30 in favor of the Caps. Hits were 21-13 in favor of the Caps, and both teams were 2 for 4 on the power play. And then for the Capitals, in overtime at 2:18, it would be Matt Niskanen netting his first of the season from Evgeny Kuznetsov and TJ Oshie, their 6th and 3rd respectively, to ice this game for the Washington Capitals, a 4-3 victory. Shots were 38-32 in favor of the Capitals. Faceoffs were 35-31 in favor of the Caps. Hits were 23-14 in favor of the Caps, and both teams were 2 for 4 on the power play. Then moving on to their next game against the Florida Panthers. I didn't even bother writing my notes of what I put on the website for this game because it wasn't even worth it. Alright, so 10-19, Florida Panthers versus the Washington Capitals. For the Panthers, they had Evgeny Dadonov with Alexander Barkov and Nick Bustad, Vincent Trocheck with Colton Skeever and Jonathan Huberdeau, Frank Vatrano with Jared McCann and Dennis Malgin, Mike Hoffman and Juho Lemiko and Troy Brouwer. Defense, they had Keith Yandel with Aaron Ekblad, Mark Pysyk with Alexander Petrovic, Bogdan Kiselevich with Mackenzie Weegar and James Reimer in goal for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Or not, Florida Panthers, my bad. And then for Washington, the only change to their lineup was Nathan Walker being a healthy scratch and Dmitry Yaskin being put back into the lineup on the fourth line. In the first period, 6:10 into the game, Jacob Vrana would be called for slashing yet another offensive zone infraction on Jacob Vrana. I don't even know why he's in the lineup right now. And then at 10:49, Vincent Trocheck would score his second of the season from Jonathan Huberdeau and Alexander Petrovic. And then at 15:26, the Capitals would respawn when John Carlson would score his goal from Lars Eller and Michael Kempney. And that's obviously not John Carlson's first of the season. I don't even know why I put it that way. And then at 15:41, Evgeny Kuznetsov would be called for hooking, which then on that power play, Evgeny Dadonov would score his third of the season from Alexander Barkov and Vincent Trocheck. At 16:36, Colton Skeever would then score assisted by Jonathan Huberdeau and Vincent Trocheck. And then at 18:52, Jared McCann would score his first of the season from Dennis Malgin and Keith Yandel. So the Panthers would score 3 unanswered goals, starting with a power play goal against the Capitals. In the first period, it would be Florida 4, Washington 1. Not a pretty look. Shots were 11-5 in favor of the Panthers. Faceoffs were 10-9 in favor of the Panthers. Hits were 10-7 in favor of the Caps, and Florida was 1 for 2 on the power play, where the Caps did not have a single power play to start this game. This was just a bad period for the Capitals. Let's just be brutally honest. They only put 5 shots on goal. They responded well when they gave up the first goal when John Carlson got netted his goal, but then immediately after that, Evgeny Kuznetsov took a bad penalty, led into a power play goal, and then 2 more goals immediately after that. Not the type of start you want to a game. Definitely not that good. So for the Capitals, number one thing that in my opinion, I was saying that they needed to do this, and they ended up doing it, and that's pull Braden Holtby, put Phoenix Copley in the net. You got to change something. That's the easiest change you can do outside of fixing your entire lineup and just redoing it all. But you know what? The Caps did pull Holtby. They put in Phoenix Copley, and it had an effect. At 1:48, Brett Connolly scored his first of the season, assisted by Jacob Vrana. Then at 3:50, Keith Yandel got called for high sticking. Then at 8:38, Jacob Vrana would score his second of the season, assisted by Lars Eller and Brett Connolly. Then at 9:51, Christian Jews would be called for interference, but Frank Vatrano would also be called for embellishment on the play. Then at 13:15, Javante Smith-Pelly would score his first of the season from Matt Niskanen and Evgeny Kuznetsov. which would then result in James Reimer being pulled for Michael Hutchinson for the Florida Panthers. Then at 17-18, Alex Ovechkin would be called for interference. Then at 18-03, the Caps would be down 2 men as the bench would be called for too many men on the ice. And then on that power play right there at 19-09, Jonathan Huberdeau would score his second of the season from Evgeny Dadonov and Mike Hoffman. And then in 1952, Evgeny Kuznetsov would be called for unsportsmanlike conduct, thus putting the Capitals back in a 5-on-3 scenario. At the end of the second period, the Panthers would be up 5-4. Shots were 21-17 in favor of the Capitals. Faceoffs were 24-21 in favor of the Panthers. Hits were 17-14 in favor of the Caps. On the power play, the Panthers were 2 for 4 and the Capitals were 0 for 1. Much better period for the Capitals. Pulling Phoenix Copley obviously proved to be a benefit for the Washington Capitals, and it actually worked out very well for them as it allowed them to it just gave them a breath of fresh air. They responded very well to the Connolly goal. They couldn't do anything with their lone power play, but at the same time, they get back into the game, and then they put themselves in the penalty trouble, which allows Florida to take back the lead. So the Capitals definitely have to play a much better 20 minutes of hockey in the third period for them. And then speaking of third period, at 7:38, Vincent Trocheck would be called for roughing. Then at 8:29, TJ Oshie would kill the power play for the Capitals by getting a high sticking call. Then at 16:52, Mackenzie Weegar would be called for interference at 16:52. And then on that power play at 18:35, Nicholas Backstrom would score his second of the season from Lars Eller and Evgeny Kuznetsov. And at 19:37, Matt Niskanen would be called for tripping. The game would be tied 5-5 going into overtime. Shots were 29-27 in favor of the Caps. Faceoffs were 33-31 in favor of Florida. Hits were 27-20 in favor of the Capitals. On the power play, Florida was 2 for 6 and the Capitals were 1 for 3. In overtime, nothing happened. But some stats did get bumped up a little bit, whereas in shots, the Caps led the Panthers 31-30. Faceoffs were 33-32 in favor of the Panthers. Hits were 28-20 in favor of the Caps, and the power play was 2 for 7 for Florida and 1 for 3 for the Caps. Then going into the shootout, TJ Oshie would go first, and he would score, followed by Alexander Barkov, who would score. Then Evgeny Kuznetsov was next up and scored, and then Nick Bjugstad would be robbed by Phoenix Copley. And then Alex Ovechkin would be stopped by Michael Hutchinson, and Vincent Trocheck would score. Nicholas Backstrom would miss, and then Jonathan Huberdeau would score to give the Florida Panthers the 6-5 victory over the Washington Capitals. Let's try this real quick. 19. And hopefully it won't turn itself on. Alright. And then we had our game from Monday night, the Washington Capitals at the Vancouver Canucks. For the Capitals, they did some line toggling, which was started at the Florida game. Devontae Smith-Pelly ended up on the first line, Chandler Stevenson on the second line, Jacob Vrana on the third line, and Andrei Burakovsky on the fourth. D pairing stayed the same. For the Vancouver Canucks, they had Nikolai Goldobin with Bo Horvat and Brock Besser. They had Sven Bartchy with Adam Gaudette and Jake Virtanen, Antoine Roussel with Brandon Sutter, and Louis Eriksson, Tim Schaller with Michael Granlund and Tyler Mott. On D, they had Alexander Edler with Christopher Tanev, Derek Pouliot with Troy Stetcher, Ben Hutton with Eric Gudbranson, and Anders Nielsen starting in net for the Vancouver Canucks. And right off the bat into the game, 52 seconds in, both Michael Kempny and Antoine Roussel would both get 2 minutes each for roughing. Then at 2:20, John Carlson would score his 5th of the season from Jacob Vrana and Christian Hughes. Then at 3:55, Brooks Orpik would get calls for tripping. And then stop turning on. I'm trying to work here. Behave, Facebook. Twitch is being nice, but you're not behaving. Welcome to the world of technical difficulties while going live. So, as I was saying, and before I was rudely interrupted by Facebook Live, and at 15:28, Bo Horvat would get 2 minutes for hooking. Going into the first period, the Caps would be up 1-0. Shots are 13-6 in favor of the Capitals. Faceoffs are 9-8 in favor of Vancouver. Hits were 8-7 for the Capitals, and on the power play, both teams were 0-1. This was a good start to the game for the Capitals. They brought the physicality early and got it in on a great breakout play. The Capitals were able to give themselves an early 1-0 lead. The Capitals also are doing a great job of clogging up the neutral zone and making it difficult for the Canucks to enter the zone and create a presence. However, the Caps need to continue clogging up the neutral zone and making smart plays to generate offense in the Canucks' end. Also, the Caps need to shoot some more when they have the opportunity to do so. Just a bad habit. They just pass it up one too many times. Going into the second period at 3:22, John Carlson would be called for tripping. Then at 7:30, Troy Stetcher would score his first of the season unassisted. 8:47, Eric Gudbranson would get 2 minutes for cross-checking. Then on that power play at 9:29, Evgeny Kuznetsov would score his fifth of the season from John Carlson and Alex Ovechkin. Then at 19:34, Alex Ovechkin would score his seventh of the season from Nicholas Backstrom and TJ Oshie. But then at 19:45, Nicholas Backstrom would get 2 minutes for tripping. At the end of the second period, the Caps would be up 3-1. Shots are 25-18 in favor of the Caps. Faceoffs are 21-16 in favor of Vancouver. Hits were 18-15 in favor of Vancouver. The Caps were 1 for 2 on the power play, and Vancouver was 0 for 2 with their third in progress going into the third. Not the best start to this period, but the Capitals rebounded beautifully and were able to come out of the second period with a 2-goal lead. However, they have put themselves in some tough spots as they have taken some bad penalties. The Caps need to start the third period strong and kill off the Nicholas Backstrom penalty, and then they need to force the play in the Canucks zone and not allow the Canucks any opportunities to get back into this game. Now, originally, my game plan on this one was to say, I'm going to bed. I have a job that I have to be up for at 5 in the morning and have to be started at 8 in the morning for. But I opted not to, and I stayed up for the third period, which is why I'm able to do this. So then, at the 22nd mark into the period, Sven Bartchi on the power play would score his third of the season from Brock Besser and Bo Horvat. But at 1:52, Alexander Edler would be called for interference. And at 4:31, Troy Stetcher would be called for tripping. And then at 5:35 on that power play, Alex Ovechkin would score his second of the game and 8th of the season from John Carlson and Nicholas Backstrom. Then TJ Oshie would net an empty netter at 18-19 for the Capitals, his 5th of the season from Alex Ovechkin and Nicholas Backstrom. Biggest thing about this goal was that Ovechkin had the opportunity to take the hat trick, but he decided to pass it to TJ Oshie instead of giving himself the padding of the stats. And then at 19:29, Sven Bartchi would be called for delay of game, and that would be the end of that one. The Capitals would win 5-2. Shots are 33-24 in favor of the Caps. Faceoffs are 28-25 in favor of Vancouver. Hits were 21-19 in favor of Vancouver, and the Caps were 2 for 5 on the power play, and Vancouver was 1 for 3. This was a good game for the Capitals overall, as they played a hard-fought game against the Canucks. The Capitals responded very well when the Canucks scored, and the Capitals, while wasting at least one power play opportunity, utilized their power play very well. The Capitals also did a very good job of controlling the tempo and clogging up the neutral zone against the Canucks, and will need to do the same Thursday night in Edmonton against the Oilers. So obviously next up for the Capitals, it is the Edmonton Oilers in Edmonton tomorrow night, 9 p.m. And yeah. So what we're going to do real quick is we're going to go take a mini break, and then we're going to be joined by Steve Gardiner, our Toronto Maple Leafs writer. He will be talking about the article that he put out today, which is called "Will the Real Maple Leafs Please Stand Up?" And it's about the team and their identity and who they're going to be, and really, essentially, if this is a team that can win the cup. And we're also going to talk about other stuff pertaining to the Toronto Maple Leafs, like William Nylander and other things. So with that, we're going to take a quick break. We're really going to be promoting the upcoming appearances that I have at DerpyCon next month, which is what you'll be seeing before and after on both. So with that, here's me with Steve from last night.
And ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to the Experience Hockey Talk Series Hockey Talk for Series Hockey fans. And as you can tell, I am now joined by our Toronto Maple Leafs writer, Steve Gardiner, who is currently at an ice rink.
Good, how you doing,
Best
man?
credit. We literally take the Serious Hockey Talk thing literally. Like, serious hockey, right there, at an ice rink.
Yeah, it's good to be here, and it's good to talk about hockey all the time.
Now, one thing that we wanted to talk about was you had an article come out this morning about the Toronto Maple Leafs, or the real Toronto Maple Leafs. Please stand up. And why don't you go a little bit into that and explain why you felt that you needed to write an article about this team and how the real team needs to stand up?
Yeah. So the idea was that defensemen in our day and age, um, they tend to look differently than we think. And so when I thought about the Leafs, and everybody's talking about the defense and the amazing scoring they had, and everybody kept saying, well, we need a defenseman, we need somebody to shut down. And I wanted to really write an article that said, like, what are we looking at here in Toronto? Are we saying that we're going to expect our whole season to look like a bunch of ups and downs, or is there going to be some sort of consistency to this team? And I really believe that we have so many young pieces that there will be consistency eventually, but there's going to be some bumps along the way. And so that's why I really wanted to write an article like this, because I wanted people to understand that in Toronto, we tend to get a little impatient, and we don't like to wait for things to happen, and so we end up like getting our players angry, and we get angry at them, and then all of a sudden we start saying stupid things about them, and it's just not. It's a hockey environment sometimes that's so very callous towards actual development.
Right. Now, one thing that you mentioned in the article was the catchphrase of "you can't win in the playoffs without defense." You say it's not true. Look at the Caps. Look at the Penguins. I hate to break it to you, man. I really do. But you got to play defense, otherwise the other team's going to be scoring goals. And I understand the logic where you look at, the defensive core, the 6 guys who play the back end. I understand your concept of that because, yes, you're right. Now it's more about moving it up the ice faster, getting it out of the zone faster.
Yeah.
But at the same time, when you're in your own zone, or when the other team has the puck trying to get into your zone, you still have to play defense to prevent them from getting into your zone. And you look at the Capitals and the 6 that they went with, in the Stanley Cup playoffs, especially in the finals. That 6 was a very good D core that actually helped prevent, especially once they got situated, really did a good job of preventing other teams from being able to score, especially like a high-powered Pittsburgh Penguins, a high-powered Tampa Bay Lightning, and especially a very fast Vegas Golden Knights team. And of course, you look at the 2 Cup teams for Pittsburgh. Yes, they did it both without Chris Letang due to injuries and stuff like that. But that's also where a lot of the forwards come into play, and they really play a lot of that defense to help, to really boost the defensive core on the team as well.
Yeah. So the reason I probably very poorly explained it is that when I look at the Capitals and the Penguins, who are 2 of the last Stanley Cup champions, I see a team who worked well not only as a 6-man core, they worked well as a team. You had players like Alex Ovechkin, who had a black mark on his career for not playing defense. That's what a lot of analysis on his career was. He was probably the biggest guy, like, back checking and coming back to play defense. And I think that's what everybody misses about this, is that, like, 1883. The Leafs need to have a team that's going to commit to this. It's not just a 1-man or a 6-man system. And, like, if the Leafs decide to play a 6-man D-core and that's it, and the forwards are going to float around at the top, this team is not going to win. If that's the expectation of the team, they're not going to win. Because offense only takes you so far. There has to be some kind of commitment to a defense. But what I'm saying is that everybody's so worried about getting that defenseman. It's not about a team defense, it's about a defenseman. And I think what the last two Stanley Cup winners have shown us is that, like, you have that number one guy, and you have that number two guy. And I think the Capitals had Carlson, who was super underrated, and then they had Matt Niskanen. They acquired Kempny, and Kempny played fantastic, and still is. But they had these two guys, and that's the way they built their core around this. But it was less about, like, just the six-man unit. It was more about, you know, Nicholas Backstrom coming back and playing defense, Alex Ovechkin playing defense, causing turnovers, all these different things that made Washington so scary to play against. And same thing in Pittsburgh was that the commitment from each line, even the Phil Kessels, who, once again, were black marked for lack of defense. You saw him in the playoffs when they won. He was always on his horse.
Well, Phil Kessel still is not like the through hits, though.
It's very true. Phil Kessel is definitely not on like Alex Ovechkin level, but he at least gave some effort.
Well, the greatest thing about Phil Kessel, and we'll make this a small point, but my father at the end of every season likes to look at the stats especially when teams get eliminated, and he looked at Phil Kessel's stats. After the second cup year, I think Phil Kessel only had like 6 hits the entire year.
Yeah.
Like how do you only have 6 hits? You got to hit somebody by accident, you know?
It's true, though. It's true. It's some of the fascinating stats about him. They just you realize like the type of player he is, and that he's not a go-to guy kind of thing.
No, not for physicality, but he's a talented player. But
yeah.
But you know, let's take this and let's segue over. Obviously, okay. Toronto has Morgan Riley, Jake Gardiner, Travis Dermott, and a few others. You have this situation where you just signed John Tavares to a 7-year contract. You're going to have to pay Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner the big money contracts.
Yeah.
And as a result of that, knowing this, you have a holdout with William Nylander. Do you think a bridge deal will happen? Because that's honestly the only thing that he's going to be able to get in the immediate future with this Toronto Maple Leafs. But if he sticks to his guns and says, no, I want, long-term $8 million a year, do you flip him for a defenseman that will actually help? Because like when you look at Morgan Riley and Jake Gardiner, you see more offense from those guys, but you don't see a lot of more defense. But you need to have like that one guy who will stay back, like a Brooks Orpik or a Ron. Well, you do have a Ron Hainsey, but Ron Hainsey, would probably be a seventh defenseman on some other teams. Let's be brutally honest here. But when you look at that, do you try to go out and you use William Nylander to pick up a legitimate top pairing defenseman?
Yeah, I think it's a very scary situation that they're in. You have this. There's no lack of offense in Toronto. There's none. But it's how are you going to pay all these guys kind of thing. And the idea behind that is like you got to hope for some kind of discount. And Nylander has kind of not helped the situation at all. But as I've written about in another article, is that this is not new from a Nylander standpoint. This is a very typical thing. But I think in Austin Matthews, he wants to win. And same thing with Mitch Marner. I think they want to win. And so, like, the idea would be that they want to take the discount, stay in Toronto, at least for a few years. to see if Toronto can win them a few cups, and then maybe look elsewhere. But I think the idea is now, and I think that's the sense that I think that's one of the reasons why Dubas is not giving into Nylander's kind of thing, is that I think the sense from Toronto and from Shanahan and from the Leafs staff and everything is that these guys want to win in Toronto. They want to prove something, and then who knows after that. And I think Dubas is banking on that. Is it a scary situation for Toronto? Oh yeah, because the potential to lose Jake Gardiner next year, because he's going to want some money. Morgan Rice locked up for a few years. Dermott is very close to having a contract up for renewal. Ozhiganov, the same thing, and Hainsey's done this season. Like, where are you going to find all the money? So it's going to be a very, very interesting situation. I think it's all going to come down to whether. I don't foresee Marner going anywhere. Marner's a Toronto boy. I think he wants to stay in Toronto. But Matthews, I think,
he'll go to Arizona.
It's a definite possibility.
Yeah, I mean, he is from Phoenix. So.
Yeah.
And technically speaking, Phoenix really should have had that first pick overall when Matthews was there. They kind of got screwed out of it, and it went to Toronto. So could you imagine if Matthews was with his hometown team legitimately? Kind of like the same reason why John Tavares signed with the Toronto Maple Leafs. But,
True.
Trying to think here. I had a thought. Oh, what are your thoughts on obviously we had Matt Dean doing the NHL alumni this past weekend, and he was touching base on something that Brendan Shanahan said, where guys like Matthews and Marner are probably going to have to take, less money to make it work with the salary cap. And then he took a little heat from Glenn Healy, Shanahan did, where he said that, like, with the Detroit teams that won those cups, that a lot of the guys took less money to be a part of those cup teams in Detroit, which Healy was like, no, that's a bunch of bull because there was no salary cap then. You were given what you were worth. What are your thoughts on some of Shanahan's comments, especially in regards to the cap and some stuff that he said about when he was with Detroit taking less money?
Repeat that one more time for me, just so I get the full question so I can answer it.
Brendan Shanahan made comments about how, Matthews, Marner, Gardiner, all these kids are going to have to take less money in order to keep the entire team together. And then used past experience with Detroit, stating that with those cup teams, everyone took less money to stay together to have those cup runs, which then Glenn Healy came out and said, no, you're full of it because there was no cap then. What are your thoughts on Brendan Shanahan's comments in regards to the salary cap era of now and the never-existent salary cap era of then?
See, I love Brendan Shanahan, and when he made that comment, it was a very bad comment to make, because back then the salary cap wasn't much of an issue. Salary cap is a big issue now, and I think a player like an Austin Matthews knows that he is so talented that he doesn't need to win in Toronto. He can go anywhere he wants to, make his 14, 15 million a season, and probably still win eventually. And so I think it's a hard sell for him. A guy like a Jake Gardiner, very easy sell, because I think Toronto was the team that took him in and said, well, for all your giveaways and your turnovers and everything else, we'll work with you. And some of the young guys, I don't think they've stood out so much that they're going to garner massive contracts. But I think Matthews is going to be where the selling point is going to be. And it's all going to start down to, it was reported today that Nylander and the Leafs are looking at a bridge deal. It's all going to fall into where that bridge deal falls into place. And whether Matthews goes, okay, I'll give you guys, 5 years. Let's see what we can do here. Or if he says, you know what, winning's not a big issue to me. I have, 20 years left in my career. Do it wherever I want to. I think I want to believe that people will start taking discounts like they do in Detroit. And I want to be honest at the same time and be like, it's a very difficult thing to do in a cap era. I think John Carlson took a discount to stay in Washington because I think if he had went to the open market, he would have probably got $10 million.
Oh, he definitely would.
But there's not many players who would do that. I think Carlson was satisfied with where he was at in Washington.
And the fact that he just won a cup.
Exactly. And I think he was perfectly okay with what he got, and that was it. But I think Austin Matthews being 21 years old by the time his contract is up, it's going to be a very difficult sell. Now, if the Leafs make it out of the first round and into the second round, maybe the third round this year, an easier sell. But if they don't, very, very difficult sell. And if Dubas finds a way to make it work, then fantastic. But I think with the signing of Tavares and with the fact that the Leafs have been very, I wouldn't say open, but they've hid away from the situation that they need a defenseman. And they've kind of said, oh, no, we don't need to worry about that. We don't need to worry about that. And everybody knows they need a defenseman. So they're going to try to get one of those defensemen somehow. It's going to be a very difficult sell because I believe if Matthews takes a discount, it's probably going to be somewhere around the $8 million range. And that's very low. So considering McDavid got 14, that's a scary thing. I'm a little worried about the situation, to be honest.
Well, one thing you can keep in mind is this: the Leafs have Tavares under that big contract.
Yeah.
They have Riley under a big contract.
Mm-hmm.
Edmonton has McDavid under that massive contract.
Yeah.
And Leon Draisaitl under a massive contract, to which they have gone, oops, we made a mistake here.
Yeah.
And that's something that, Austin Matthews is also going to be looking at the same time, is hopefully this team does not make a mistake with my contract, because we also have Tavares, and then we also have to get Marner done. So you have those other X factors at play as well.
Yeah, I think I usually don't say a lot about Edmonton because Edmonton Oilers hate us Leaf fans. But that is a very, very, very scary contract they gave to those two guys. And it's showing in the rest of the team.
McDavid is worthy of his contract, but there's
Yeah.
some doubt about Draisaitl. That's the one that people are a little...
I agree, yeah. The Draisaitl contract is bad. And it's really it's pretty scary. I don't see them how they're gonna get out from underneath it. And they need defense, and they have no more forward depth. They have Milan Lucic, who's barely averaging anything a game. I don't know, and that's my worry for Toronto.
Well, Steve, it's been a pleasure, my friend. Real quick, where can the people find you on social media? Which is something that we do a horrible job of promoting, apparently.
Yeah, they can hit me up on social media if they want. Oh, no.
Oh, Steve froze.
There we go. Okay.
You froze. Now go about the social media.
Yep, they can find me on social media. It's at Guardski. You can find it on I think on the TXT page
website,
Yep, and you can hit me up on Facebook too. I'm willing to answer any questions. Reply to the articles. I'll respond to you. I'd love to talk about this stuff.
All right. Well, Steve, thanks so much for coming on. And ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back with more serious hockey talk for serious hockey fans right here on Txht.
And ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to the Experience Hockey Talk, the live version of the show. Big thanks to Steve. And I just want to throw this out there. I don't know why my audio was acting up the way it was on the feed. But when Steve and I were recording that segment, he could hear me perfectly clear on everything with the exception of certain things when, things were going on in the background where he was because he was running the scoreboard for an ice hockey game. But, yeah, so watching these things back, it makes me go, yeah, okay, I need to do this, I need to do that for how we're going to do those type of segments on the show moving forward. Because this is a constant learning experience on how this show is going to work, especially with some of the new tech that we have. And also somehow, I don't know why, I don't know how, but we lost the Facebook Live thing on the laptop. But it's still live, which is awesome because I'm controlling the feed on here. The things that we figure out while we do it. So, we're going to have to get a lot done in 18 minutes. So we're going to do some NWHL right now. First off, we had the Minnesota Whitecaps visiting the Metropolitan Riveters at the Prudential Center on this past Saturday, the 20th, which myself and Shaggy were both there live for. Really great to be there. Awesome to see the banner raised for that game. Lineup for the Minnesota Whitecaps was Amy Menke with Hannah Brandt and Kate Schiffer. Jonna Curtis with Katie McGovern and Allie Thunstrom. Callie Funk with Haley Schmid and Megan Pezon. Defense was Lee Stecklin with Amanda Boulier. Tanya Eisenschmidt with Emma Stauber. Amy Schlegel with Chelsea Brott Rosenthal. And in net was Amanda Leveille. And then for the Riveters, they had Rebecca Russo with Madison Packer and Amanda Kessel. Fiona McKenna with Alexa Grushko and Audra Richards. Rebecca Morris with Kristen Lewicki and Erica Lawler. You had Michelle Picard with Chelsea Ziadi, Kira Dosdall with Jenny Ryan, Kelsey Colesworth with Lexi Slattery, and Katie Fitzgerald in net for the Riveters. And then in the first period of 13:33, Jenny Ryan would be called for tripping. Then at 18:13, the Whitecaps would score the first goal of the game as Chelsea Rosenthal would get her first of the season from Amy Schlegel. But then at 19:08, to end the period, Madison Packer would score her first of the season, assisted by Michelle Picard. At the end of the first period, it would be tied 1-1. Shots were 10-6 in favor of Minnesota. Faceoffs were 11-6 in favor of Minnesota. They don't do hitting in the NWHL, so we don't have that stat officially. Power play was 0-for-1 for the Riveters, or for Minnesota, and the Riveters did not have one. This game started off slow and a little sloppy for both teams as they went through a feeling out process. But as the game progressed, both teams settled in and started generating good scoring chances for each other. For the Riveters, they need to do a better job of setting up the Whitecap zone and creating some better scoring opportunities. Also, the Riveters need to make some better and cleaner passes. As for the Whitecaps did a great job getting passes to their points to get shots on goal, and will need to continue to do that. That was one of the things that actually generate a lot more of the shots on goal, was by getting it from the point. In the second period at 3:23, Kira Dosdall would be called for tripping. Then at 12:31, Amy Menke would score her first of the season, assisted by Jonna Curtis. Then at 17:46, Madison Pack would score her second of the game, which would be unassisted. And then in 19:04, Megan Pezon would score her first of the season, assisted by Callie Funk. At the end of the second period, it'd be 3-2 Minnesota. Shots were 23-14 in favor of Minnesota. Faceoffs were 23-13 in favor of Minnesota. And Minnesota was 0-for-2 on the power play, whereas the Riveters had not had one. This was honestly a much better period for both teams. The passing was much crisper, and some of the better scoring opportunities were generated for both teams as a result. The Riveters were also much more efficient with their overall game, but the Whitecaps were a much better zone team. The Riveters played a much better second period and responded well when they went down 2-1, but they need to do a much better job in the face-off circle. Face-offs wins will help with their possession. As for the Whitecaps, they also had a much better period and were able to take the momentum back with a late goal for the 3-2 lead. The Whitecaps need to keep pushing the pressure in the Riveters zone. Then in the third period at 2:33, Audra Richards would get her first of the season, assisted by Kelsey Colzer. Then 9:32, Hannah Brandt would get her third of the season, assisted by Lee Stecklin. And then at 10:38, you had Allie Thunstrom get called for hooking. And at 19:41, with the empty net, Jonna Curtis would get her first of the season, assisted by Hannah Brandt. Minnesota would go on to win the game 5-3. Shots are 27-22 in favor of Metropolitan. Face-off to 31-18 in favor of Minnesota. Power play was 0-2 for Minnesota and 0-1 for the Riveters. This was a fun game to watch. The first period was a little sloppy for both teams, but with the second period, the game tightened up and both teams started to play much better. The Whitecaps were clearly the better in the face-off circle, but the Riveters took the shot advantage. Both teams responded well when the other scored, but it would be the Whitecaps getting the empty netter too, which would essentially clinch this one. And if you go over to txhthockey.com, we do have our recap up from that game. Also, at the very bottom of the article, we have all of our post-game interviews, all of which are audio. We have Amanda Leveille, Lee Stecklin, Madison Packer, Audra Richards, and Michelle Picard. Also, special thanks to Dan Rice and Mike Murphy for allowing us to publish these interviews, as you can hear them asking questions to all 5 of the players. So thank you to you two gentlemen for allowing us to post the interviews up on txhthockey.com. Then also later that day, you had the Connecticut Whale taking on the Boston Pride. The Boston Pride picked up another home win, battling the Connecticut Whale to a 4-2 victory at Warrior Ice Arena on Saturday night. The Pride improved to 2-0 after defeating the Isabel Cup champion Riveters 5-1 the previous weekend. Emily Field wasted no time getting the Pride on the board, scoring her second of the season just 35 seconds into the game on an assist from Jillian Dempsey. Field's goal set the wheels in motion as Boston dominated the remainder of the first period, but lights-out play from Miri Rastinen kept it a 1-goal game through the first. Lauren Kelly would make the Pride's lead to 2 with a shot from the point on the power play just 5 minutes into the second period, but the tide would soon turn. After being held scoreless for the first 150 minutes and 51 seconds of the season, Connecticut scored twice in under 5 minutes to not score at 2. Katrina Mrazova broke the drought with a goal from in tight on the power play. Then she set up captain Emily Floof's game-tying goal with 4:49 left in the second. But in the third period, Lexi Bender caught up to her and refused to throw. Hold on, I'm getting lost here. McKenna Brand netted the game winner, and Gigi Marvin sealed it with an empty netter to give the Boston Pride a 4-2 win. Moving on to the next one. And then on Sunday, you had the Whitecaps versus the Riveters once again, this time at the Barnabas Health House. And the Minnesota Whitecaps finished off a 4-game sweep of their season series against the Metropolitan Riveters with a 6-2 victory in the second half of the back-to-back in New Jersey. On Sunday, Amanda Leveille turned aside 26 shots from the chance to continue her recent dominance over them. She improved to 4-0-0 against them this season with a 9-4-0 against them over her last 13 matchups against the Riveters. Minnesota was led by the trio of Allie Thundrum, who had 2 goals and assists, Katie McGovern, 2 goals and an assist, and Jonna Curtis, 1 goal and 3 assists in the win. So obviously, Minnesota Whitecaps, very scary team, very dominating team in the 2 weeks that they have played, in the 4 games, 2 weeks that they've played in the season. Still a very young season. And then the player of the week for this past week is Jonna Curtis. She was named the Veda Player of the Week. She's the NWHL top scorer in the league. I'm trying to find information. Yeah, they don't have a whole lot of information. They just said that her outstanding play on Saturday and Sunday and her team's wins over the Riveters. It doesn't say. I know she put up a good amount of points over the weekend. Obviously, a goal, 3 assists, and I believe she had a goal and an assist in the first game. So, yeah, she's definitely up there right now. For the coming up next in the NWHL on the 27th, this Saturday at 6:30 p.m., the Buffalo Beauts are visiting the Minnesota Whitecaps. And then that night at 6:30 p.m. Central Time, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, that's when the Beauts take on the Whitecaps in Minnesota. And then at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, the Metropolitan Riveters are visiting the Boston Pride at Warrior Arena. And then on October 28th, the Buffalo Beauts take on the Minnesota Whitecaps at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, 2 p.m. Central. And then after that, there won't be any NWHL hockey until November 17th. So this weekend's the last weekend of hockey until November 17th. So definitely watch it. You can watch the games on Twitter. You can watch the games on YouTube. Go to nwhl.zone for more information on how you can watch the NWHL. That. Go here. And we're going to do super fast NHL news and notes. I'm obviously not going to do the full breakdown because we only have 8 minutes left. But on October 21st, it was announced that former New York Islanders owner Charles Lang passed away. He passed away that morning. We'll do that one. That has some newsworthy stuff in there. On October 21st, the Tampa Bay Lightning posted a franchise record 55 shots on goal in a win. The Lightning converted on 6 of 55 shots on goal to defeat the Chicago Blackhawks and improve the 5-1 this season. Tampa Bay boosted its record to 6-1 in the last 7 games against Chicago since both teams met in the 2015 Stanley Cup Finals, including 6 consecutive wins. The Lightning established a franchise record for most shots on goal in the game, eclipsing the previous mark of 52 set on November 18, 2018 versus Florida. Tampa Bay recorded 33 of its 55 shots on goal in the middle frame, the highest total by a team in one period since 1997-98. That is insane. Johnny Gaudreau scored twice to reach the 300-point milestone and helped the Calgary Flames improve the 5-3-0, including a 3-2-0 mark on the road. And then Paul Kariya had his jersey number retired by the Anaheim Ducks. It was really cool to see that. One of the interesting things, and this will be a little nugget for you Caps fans, league leaders from 1994 to 95 to 2002-2003. Number 2 in goals scored, Peter Bondra. Number 1 was obviously Jaromir Jagr. So for us Caps fans, for him to be in that company with Paul Kariya in that time span, which was 9 seasons with the Mighty Ducks, which he played 606 games. He had 300 goals, 369 assists for 669 points. He's definitely up there as one of the best players to have played the game. And the fact that Bondra is in that list with him, especially when it comes to goals, tells you something special about Peter Bondra. Let's see here. Anything worthwhile in here? Oh yeah, in the game against Vancouver, Nicholas Backstrom with his first assist of the game was his 600th assist, earning the milestone for him. John Carlson posted his 5th multi-point outing of the season and second with at least 3 points after leading all defensemen in points last season. Carlson has started 2018-19 by becoming the 10th different blue liner in NHL history with 5 multi-point games in his first 18 games of the season. Bobby Orr did it 3 times. Dennis Potvin did it 2 times. are the only defensemen to accomplish defeat more than once. Ovechkin's 25th career game with at least 4 points also stands as his 123rd multi-goal game, third this season. He surpassed Mark Messier for the sole possession of 13th place on the NHL's all-time list for multi-goal games, and now sits one such outing shy of tying Steve Yzerman for the 12th most in the league. Ovechkin's 103rd game-winning goal also marked the 233rd power play tally of his career, which propelled him ahead of Dino Ciccarelli into sole possession of 9th place on the NHL's all-time power play goals list. Interesting stats on Nicholas Backstrom. Backstrom reached the milestone with his 40th career performance of at least 3 assists. He set up 52 different teammates on the road whose 600 career assists included 234 helpers on goals by Alex Ovechkin with his 39% of the goals. And that. And then lastly, this will be in our news and notes for tomorrow. But Ottawa Senators defenseman Mark Borowiecki has been suspended for 1 game without pay for elbowing Boston Bruins defenseman Urho Vaakanainen during NHL game numbers 125 in Ottawa on Tuesday, October 23rd, the National Hockey League's Department of Player Safety announced today. The incident occurred at 3:05 of the first period. Under the terms of the CBA and based on his average annual salary, Borowiecki will forfeit $6,451.61. The money goes to the Player Emergency Assist Fund. And also, lastly, in regards to news and notes, it was announced today, and this will also be in tomorrow's daily, but Brian Boyle has announced that his cancer has gone into remission. So definitely congratulations to Brian Boyle on that, on what it really is, and that's a milestone. He was able to beat cancer, and the guy's still playing hockey, and you couldn't be more proud for him. For the battle that he's put up and the fact that he's still able to play the game that he loves to play. So, yeah. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, this has been the Experience Hockey Talk, Serious Hockey Talk for serious hockey fans. Thanks to Steve Gardiner for coming on the show, talking Toronto Maple Leafs. Fun segment with him. Had a lot of fun recording it with him last night. Go to txhthockey.com. You can read Steve's article about will the real Maple Leafs please stand up, plus also all of our game recaps, previews, other news and notes. Obviously, tomorrow is the big day we've all been waiting for. What's going to happen with Tom Wilson? We will be talking about Tom Wilson tomorrow via articles on txhthockey.com. And, of course, you can follow us on Twitter at @txht_hockey. Follow us on Twitch. Watch us live on Twitch as well here on Facebook Live by going to twitch.tv/txht_hockey. And, of course, if you're watching us on Facebook Live, hit that like button. Get the notifications, facebook.com/txhthockey. And, of course, we have our Patreon page, patreon.com/txht_hockey. We couldn't film the stuff that I wanted to film at the NWHL game at Prudential Center, but you know what? We still got 5 interviews for you that we got to put up on the site. And, go check it out. And we'll get something going for Patreon again soon. It's just with the website, we're focusing on that more. That's how we're getting a lot of our views. And, we'll get back to Patreon. Patreon is something that we definitely want to utilize. So, with that, go to txhthockey.com. All of our social media stuff is up on that website. Read the articles. Please support us. Please share our stuff out. Comment. Comment on our Facebook page. When we post the articles. Comment on the tweets. We want to hear from you. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, this has been the Experience Hockey Talk for serious hockey talk for serious hockey fans. We'll be back next Wednesday. I think it's Halloween. I love Halloween. I might push it up to Tuesday. I haven't decided yet, but I might push it to Tuesday. Everyone, have a great night. Have a great week. Caps are back at it tomorrow against the Edmonton Oilers. We'll see you on the flip side.